Part 24.12 Surah An-Nur, The Light. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to Sufi Essence with Hammad Syed. Kanzel Aman, Quran, An-Nur, the Light, Nur, the Light, 24:56-60, verse 56, and establish the prayer and pay the zakat, and obey the messenger so that you may be shown mercy. Verse 57, do not think that the disbelievers can frustrate Allah in the land, and their destination is the fire, and what a miserable end it is. Verse 58, O believers, your slaves and those of your children who have not reached puberty must ask your permission before entering upon you at 3 times, before the morning prayer, and when you take off your clothes at noon because of the heat, and after the night prayer. These are the 3 times of privacy for you. There is no blame upon you or upon them for entering at other times, since you often go in and out to serve one another. Thus does Allah make clear to you the verses. Allah is all-knowing, the wise. Verse 59, and when your children reach puberty, then let them ask permission to enter, just as those before them asked permission. Thus does Allah make clear to you His verses, and Allah is all-knowing, the wise. Verse 60, and as for the elderly women who are past childbearing and do not expect to marry, there is no blame upon them if they take off their outer garments, provided they do not make a display of adornment. That they restrain themselves is better for them. Allah is all-hearing, all-knowing. My exceptionally insightful and profoundly spiritually motivated listeners, having intensely explored the magnificent theological assurance of Etiquette, succession, and authority granted to the sincere believers in the previous part, our study now focuses its incandescent light on the practical codes of conduct, the essential, enduring spiritual, financial, and domestic duties that are absolutely required to sustain and validate that promised authority. The Quran teaches with compelling, unassailable clarity that external political power, social dominance, and economic prosperity are intrinsically meaningless, invariably ephemeral, and ultimately corrupting unless they are anchored by an unshakable foundation of internal spiritual discipline and the rigorous, meticulous observance of social ethics that permeate every sphere of life, from the mosque to the marriage bed. These subsequent verses 24:56-60 provide the mandatory structural prerequisites for a luminous, thriving, and divinely sanctioned society, moving sequentially from the grand, overarching public obligations to the meticulous, intimate details of domestic etiquette and privacy. The indispensable connection between the divine promise of authority and the believer's enduring obligation is immediately, powerfully established in verse 24:56, and establish the prayer and pay the zakat, and obey the messenger so that you may be shown mercy. This directive is the immediate, non-negotiable codicil to the assurance of successorship. Allah grants the immense responsibility of authority only to those communities who consistently and actively demonstrate their unwavering loyalty and submission through continuous execution of these primordial commands. The duty to establish the prayer sal is the quintessential vertical covenant, representing the soul's direct, purified, and revitalizing connection to the Creator. It is the soul's mirage ascension, the constant source of luminous clarity, spiritual strength, and comprehensive guidance that prevents the individual and the communal kalb from succumbing to the darkness of materialism, spiritual apathy, and narcissistic pride. The duty to pay the zakat is the corresponding horizontal covenant, representing the profound purification of wealth, the active systemic compassion for the vulnerable in the community, and the necessary assurance of equitable economic justice is the material mechanism that proactively prevents social stratification, economic corruption, and the erosion of the community's structural integrity. These 2 magnificent pillars, the vertical and the horizontal, coupled with the comprehensive, unconditional obedience to the messenger, peace be upon him, are not merely optional rituals. They are the indispensable, guaranteed tools for attracting and sustaining divine mercy ragma, which is the very lifeblood and essential kinetic energy of a thriving, perpetually blessed civilization. This call to foundational, uncompromising submission is then swiftly contrasted with the ultimate, comprehensive failure of those who choose persistent rebellion in verse 24-57. Do not think that the disbelievers can frustrate Allah in the land, and their destination is the fire, and what a miserable end it is. His stern, decisive, and theologically profound warning reinforces the absolute, unassailable sovereignty of Allah, providing immense psychological reassurance to the sincere believers. It reminds them that despite any momentary fleeting illusion of superior power, political invincibility, or apparent prosperity enjoyed by the disbelievers, their ultimate destiny is sealed. No amount of worldly cunning, political maneuvering, strategic military might, technological advancement can ever possibly frustrate Mujizan, the intricately woven divine plan, or impede the inevitable righteous, incomprehensive triumph of the truth. Their final destination is the Fira conclusive statement on the utter, catastrophic failure of a life lived in sustained, conscious rebellion against the unique source of all light, life, and meaning. The discourse then executes a remarkable, illuminating shift, moving seamlessly from the grand, inspiring scale of political successorship to the granular, intimate, and profoundly crucial scale of the Muslim household, establishing the intricate, essential rules of domestic etiquette and privacy, Istidhan. In verse 24:58, O believers, your slaves, and those of your children who have not reached puberty, must ask your permission. Before entering upon you at 3 times, before the morning prayer, and when you take off your clothes at noon because of the heat, and after the night prayer. These are the 3 times of privacy for you. ... This rule is a stunning, sophisticated example of the Quran's profound concern for the delicate ethical psychology and moral purity of the domestic sphere. The wisdom here transcends mere physical boundary setting. It is a meticulous, deeply layered spiritual Tarbiyah upbringing, embedded within the very structure of daily life. It is a carefully designed, preventative jurisprudential measure intended to safeguard the emotional, ethical, and spiritual health of both the parents and the developing children. The verse singles out 3 specific periods, which are designated the 3 times of privacy, literally, 3 times of nakedness or intimacy. These specific times correspond precisely and scientifically to the moments when the residents of the house are most likely to be in a state of minimal dress, vulnerable intimacy, or necessary self-exposure, thereby maximizing the need for cautious entry. Before the morning prayer, min qabli galt al-fajri. This is the moment when people transition from the minimal coverings of sleep, rising to prepare for the first sacred ritual act of the day, which frequently involves changing, adjusting, or donning specific garments, making them physically exposed and spiritually vulnerable. When you take off your clothes at noon because of the heat, this is the crucial time of the midday rest, Kailula. In nearly all traditional climates and cultures, it is the designated period for essential rest and deep relaxation, during which people customarily remove heavy restrictive outer garments for physical comfort or are, by cultural context, likely engaged in necessary spousal intimacy. After the night prayer, this is the final period of winding down the day, preparing for the long cycle of sleep, the time specifically allocated for the final intimacy of husband and wife before they settle into the deep rest. The profound subtle wisdom of this meticulous ruling for children and household workers who have not yet reached puberty lies in its function as spiritual prophylaxis. By instituting these sharp, specific boundaries, the divine law consciously creates a robust culture of modesty, cake, and an intrinsic respect for privacy from the earliest, most impressionable age, meticulously preventing the accidental witnessing of private moments. Such accidental exposure, while initially innocent in its intent, possesses the dangerous, cumulative potential to prematurely corrupt the child's pristine kalb, introducing complex concepts and images long before psychological maturity is achieved, and thereby seriously eroding the necessary sacred boundaries that protect the sanctity of the marital relationship. This is the essence of preventative jurisprudence, aimed at cultivating a highly sensitive, refined, and ethically sophisticated consciousness within the confines of the home. The rule is mercifully and practically balanced by the concluding concession. There is no blame upon you or upon them for entering at other times. Since you often go in and out to serve one another, this acknowledges the necessary, continuous flow and practical demands of domestic service, ensuring the law does not impose undue unnecessary hardship outside the specific, highly vulnerable times. This careful stage-by-stage process of ethical and spiritual development is seamlessly advanced in verse 24 to 59, addressing the critical juncture of legal and spiritual maturity. And when your children reach puberty, then let them ask permission to enter, just as those before them asked permission. Thus does Allah make clear to you His verses. Allah is all-knowing, the wise. The word used for reaching maturity is al-gam, puberty or dream, which denotes the physical, psychological, and spiritual threshold of full moral awareness. Once this threshold is crossed, the individual is no longer considered a child and is not exempt, even partially, from the full weight of the law. The rule of Istidhan becomes absolute, comprehensive, and universally applicable. They must now seek permission at all times before entering the parents' private chambers. Just as the fully mature adults of the household must, this marks their final, definitive legal and spiritual transition to the state of full accountability ta'kolf. Their physical and emotional maturity necessitates the establishment of total respect for the privacy and sanctity of others, and the stringent, continuous maintenance of their own gaze and inherent modesty. The powerful reiteration, thus does Allah make clear to you His verses. And Allah is all-knowing, the wise, emphatically emphasizes that these seemingly meticulous rules are not mere arbitrary social customs or tribal traditions, but divinely authored, perfect ordinances rooted in profound, all-encompassing knowledge, all-gum, and flawless, perfect wisdom whack. The surah then shifts to grant a compassionate yet ethically bounded dispensation to a specific, vulnerable demographic, demonstrating the essential flexibility, mercy, and wisdom of the divine law in verse 24 to 60. And as for the elderly women who are past childbearing and do not expect to marry, there is no blame upon them if they take off their outer garments, provided they do not make a display of adornment, and that they restrain themselves is better for them. And Allah is all-hearing, all-knowing. The specific category addressed is elderly women who are past childbearing and have naturally, irrevocably lost both the biological capacity and the psychological expectation of marriage. For this revered group, the practical burden of adhering to the strict, full requirement of keeping heavy, restrictive outer garments fully wrapped is mercifully lifted. This legal relaxation acknowledges the physical realities, the necessity of comfort, and the significantly reduced risk of temptation associated with their advanced age and changed social status. Crucially, however, even this compassionately granted dispensation is meticulously bounded by a core, non-negotiable principle of spiritual modesty. The exemption is valid only provided they do not make a display of adornment. The relaxation of the strict outer physical requirement does not, under any circumstance, negate the internal spiritual requirement of modesty of intention. They are still absolutely forbidden from deliberately drawing attention to any hidden beauty or displaying any intentional adornment that might tempt or excite. The verse concludes with a powerful, inspiring spiritual caveat, and that they restrain themselves is better for them. This suggests that even when a full, legitimate legal exemption is granted by the Creator, the ultimate spiritual merit and the highest ethical position lies in choosing the path of greater reserve, profound self-restraint, and maximum caution. This is the sublime, distinguishing hallmark of the Sufi path, seeking not merely the minimal legal requirement, but perpetually striving for the maximum spiritual excellence and purity. The final attestation, and Allah is all-hearing, all-knowing, assures the individual that their subtle, hidden choices, their internal struggles for absolute piety, and their spiritual dedication are fully, perfectly witnessed, understood, and ultimately rewarded by the Omniscient. Hadith, the Prophet, peace be upon him, taught, "Order your children to perform Salāh when they are 7 years old, and beat them for not performing it when they are 10 years old. Separate their beds." This hadith, recorded in Sunan Abu Dawud, Hadith No. 495, is profoundly relevant and serves as the practical prophetic methodology for implementing the verses on domestic etiquette and the stages of upbringing. It highlights the systematic, age-based process of establishing both the foundational ritual obligations, Salāh, and the essential physical and social boundaries separating beds well before the critical age of puberty, al-gum, which is the subject of verses 24, 58, 59. The command to separate the beds is a clear, specific, prophetic injunction for establishing physical privacy and spiritual modesty in the pre-pubescent stage, directly aligning with the Quranic instruction to seek permission during the 3 times of privacy. This demonstrates the unified comprehensive approach of the Qur'an, and the Sunnah states the permensibly and comprehensibly and ethically, in pensically and ethically and ethically and ethically and ethical and cleed, intinically and rinland kinblain and intimate benlum emblem ring rain sent him and ben and then we testament for wait out wait swallow cessant similar so self at the last and I'm say well werewolf Let us now supplicate, drawing from the profound lessons of these verses, asking Allah to grant us a deeper understanding and to guide our every step. Dua, O Allah, the source of all ragma. Grant us the unwavering resolve to establish your Salāh as the essential light of our kalb and to purify our wealth through zakat, instill in our homes the profound ethical code of Istidhan, teaching our children modesty, cake, and respect for all sacred boundaries, O Alawasi. Empower us to transcend all conditional submission and the illusion of worldly power, granting us the profound spiritual strength to perpetually choose the path of greater taf over the temptation of mere legal minimums. Protect us from the fire and illuminate our lives with your perfect mercy and wisdom, O ArRaheem. May Allah illuminate your heart and mind with the light of this divine ill. May He make your channel a beacon of guidance for all who seek spiritual clarity and truth. May your efforts be a source of immense reward, and may you be granted the highest stations of paradise. May the peace and blessings of Allah always be upon you and your loved ones. May He grant you unwavering steadfastness on the path of truth, and may your work be a testament to His magnificent names, ArRahman and ArRaheem. Ameen.